Today's episode, I have Jen from Becoming Iconic with me. I'm so thrilled to have this conversation with her. We spoke for just a few minutes before we got started, and everything she was saying, I'm like, wow, we're the same. We have so many similarities. And so you know that I love a woman who is connected to her purpose, that believes that everything that she does can come with meaning and purpose and fulfillment. And that's really like what Jen is all about. Becoming Iconic is a top rated over 100,000 download podcast. You also coach women, you have an agency, you kind of do a little bit of everything, but it's all the things that really support women in becoming and being exactly who they are meant to be, which is so, so beautiful. So what else can the listeners know about you?
Well, I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for having me. And it's a journey of a woman myself, the becoming iconic portion for me and where this business stems from is this idea and intention that I've had every day of waking up and being better than I was yesterday. To me, that is becoming iconic, because iconic will mean different things to different people. You could be an iconic stay-at-home mom. That's what fills you up. That is what you were meant and designed to do. And so how can you wake up every day and be more present with your children and pour more love into them and your family and your home? Or it could be someone like ourselves who are doing multiple things. And how do we, hold all of that success and lead all of that success? So it's really the pursuit of ourselves. And that stemmed back to 18 years ago when I started entrepreneurship.
That's like such a great explanation of becoming iconic, because that's what the question I was going to ask you is like, what does the word iconic mean to you? And I feel like you did touch on it, but like, if you were going to answer that question directly, like, what does that word iconic, why did you choose that word? Or like, what does it actually mean to you?
Well, I know when the word landed, I resisted it. I really did. I felt like,
Okay.
ooh, that's a big thing to be responsible for, to hold and declare. And it wouldn't go away. It was like this like gentle nudge and just this whisper. And it was when I put the word becoming before the iconic that I felt like I could stand behind this, because it was the pursuit. And to me, iconic, if I think about becoming iconic, like what would be Jen as an iconic version of myself? It would be that people remember how I made them feel. People remember my character and what I stood for. People felt better for knowing or being in my presence. And we all can be that. No exception to the rules. So it opened and broadened the idea where, we often think of icons like Beyonce and Oprah and feel like we have to achieve something in order to be known as iconic. I think the biggest achievement of all is really identifying with ourselves and being able to express that and share that with the world.
That's so good. And I think like when I hear the word iconic, it's almost like they're like unreachable. It's like these people who are like up on this platform, but I love that you like, the more we are connected to ourselves and our own like power and purpose and standing behind that, the more that like people will want to hear us and to see us and to notice us in order for us to connect with them. So it's actually not this like up on this platform. It's really so that we can be in full integrity with the people and like show up as the truest, most beautiful forms of ourselves.
Amen.
Oh gosh,
Amen.
that's
Because
good.
I am all about ripping down pedestals. I think we're putting ourselves on pedestals and we're putting others on pedestals, and it is an unhealthy pattern. And so it's not about being up there, this unattainable, unreachable person. It's actually in the arena with everybody else, but we are so in tune with who we are. There's a presence that is felt, and people think, oh my goodness, I want to be around her. She brings out the best in me, and she brings out the best in herself. And to me, that is like the most epic model or leadership of a woman that I can sort of cast a vision for.
Okay, I love that so much. And I kind of pictured while you were like saying bringing out the best of you, it's like I picture like this laundry basket almost like, everything's so visual in my brain. So I just, it always comes up with this visual when I'm like listening to people talk, but I pictured this laundry basket and like, let's say 90% of it is good. And there's also like the little 5% in there that maybe just needs to be thrown away, or it's like dirty, or it has holes, or it's like ready to be done with. And in order to get to all the goodness, like we also have to be like vulnerable enough, or like brave enough to also see those pieces and say, okay, you know what? Like, I don't love this anymore, or this doesn't feel good anymore, or this is like done, and getting rid of it. And I just pictured you like sorting through this laundry basket, and you being willing to say like, it's okay to go all the way through and touch all the pieces so that you can get rid of the things that you don't want or need anymore. But here is this version of you in this, like, you get to keep all the good. You get to look and find it and see it. And I'm going to help you do that. Like, let's get through your laundry, you know? And that just was like a really beautiful visual for me.
I love that. You speak in analogies, and
I
analogies
know.
are beautiful. They're beautiful because people can resonate. And even if it's a concept that maybe feels aloof or like far stretched, when we bring it into an analogy, people can understand it and connect. So I think that's fabulous that you do that. That was a great one.
And I just think about too, like maybe there's a few pieces of bad laundry sitting on top of like a stack of like your favorite pieces, or other, you know, something that is you've been looking for everywhere, but because you're unwilling to like stop and just say, it's fine. It's okay if I let these go. It's okay if they were, you know, at one point I thought they were what I wanted and needed, but like now I see it different, and getting rid of it. But we're like losing the opportunity to find all the best in us, and to really like embrace and use and put that into the things that we're doing, if we're unwilling to be vulnerable and to work through the hard things.
Yeah. And what's also coming up for me with what you're expressing is also realizing when something doesn't fit anymore.
Yeah.
You know, rather than holding on to things and like white knuckling life, it's like, this doesn't fit anymore. It doesn't make it bad, doesn't make it wrong. It's just there's a new version of myself. And so I'm going to retire this. It's expired. And I think a lot of that with me, it comes through with beliefs. You know, I often think of my beliefs that are expired. And it didn't mean that yesterday that idea was wrong.
Right.
It's just when you know better, you can do better. And that's that pursuit of challenging I challenge myself all the time. With the way I'm showing up, with my thoughts, with my language, with the way I present myself, with the way I'm holding my family, my businesses. And I just wish more people would do that more often, rather than numb themselves or stay complacent or sit in their excuses of, well, it's not working for me because I have kids. I think that is the world's worst excuse. And it's sad to me because as a mom of 4 growing businesses, if I were to say I can't be my fullest version of myself because I have children, and my children are one day grown and sitting at the dinner table with me and going like, Mom, what's one thing you wish you had done and didn't? And I look at them and say, well, I didn't grow this business because of you. How could I possibly project that upon them, make that their responsibility, that because of you, I didn't fulfill my potential, I didn't live in my purpose, I didn't try and explore? I can't do that to my children. I cannot allow that to be my excuse. And so many women do. And again, maybe this is triggering, or maybe it's like, jarring a little bit, but it's through exposing these ideas and like talking through some of these hard things that we can become better. And I appreciate that you and I are able to have that dialogue, because not everybody can hold that or have that. But I think this is an important conversation to have so that we're more aware. And when we're more aware, we do better.
Yes. And I also think that as we choose to live and take care of ourselves or pay attention to ourselves, like we are putting expectations, whether they take them or not, we're actually putting expectations on our children as we raise them. Right. So as we're making choices and as we're living our life, then me saying like, I'm abandoning all the parts of me that I've actually worked my entire life up to this point. I've like become this person, and now you're here. So I'm going to abandon those parts of me to become just for you. Right now, that then we're putting that expectation on them, and you need to do that too. You need to grow up and work really hard to become who you are. And then as soon as someone else comes into the picture, then just like forget about yourself, and then say, what do you need from me? How can I take care of you in all the ways And doesn't that just kind of sort of make you sick to your stomach a little bit?
Yeah.
Like, I don't even care if knitting is important to you, if it's knitting, right? Like if you just want to spend 1 hour a day knitting, but you believe you can't knit because you have these children who are demanding your time and energy and all those things, like you are abandoning a part of you, right? And when we abandon ourselves, we are out of integrity, and that turns into resentment, whether or not you notice it, right? It will turn to resentment, and then you're going to be resenting the people who you are actually manipulating them into thinking that they owe you everything. So it's like this vicious cycle. So the important question, I guess, let me ask you that, like, what important question can you ask yourself to see if you have parts of you that are just like begging for attention in order to like become the fullest, truest, most beautiful form of yourself?
First of all, that riff was genius and so necessary. So thank you for sharing that, because if only we could, again, remind ourselves of we are so capable. As a matter of fact, it's infinite. And I think as women, this is our superpower. And it's unfortunate because most of us are not tapped into this. Most of us haven't even realized our superpower. And as a woman, that is to hold many things. Part of my mission is to eradicate sacrificial living for women. Because when I had my first child, I had an incredible marketing career. I loved my job. I wasn't somebody who, didn't like going to work. I loved going to work. I was really good at what I did. And then I had this baby. And because I had nobody properly give me an example or to share with me that I could have the best of both worlds, I literally felt like I was at a crossroads. I needed to make a decision. Choose your children or choose your career. And how those two worlds blend, I couldn't see it. So I chose my child, and it was the right choice in that time for sure. But I literally ripped a piece of me off, and I became the sweatpant mom. I was in, my gym clothes all the time. I remember at some points I wasn't even brushing my teeth. Like their father would come home and I think, oh my gosh, it's already 4. Like I haven't even brushed my teeth. I completely disintegrated.
People make jokes about that though. Like that's actually like a badge of honor in some ways for stay-at-home moms that I hear like, I don't even have time to brush my teeth. I'm literally sacrificing myself to the point where I'm actually not even taking care of like essential hygiene.
Right. And we're praised like, oh, you're such a good mom. So we start seeking that validation of how we are as a mom, as though that's our only purpose. And although it's my favorite, most treasured title I will ever have in this lifetime, it doesn't mean I'm taking away from my children or taking away from their experience of me as their mom to be all of myself. And as a matter of fact, my oldest now is 19. And I have 19 all the way down to 8. And I watch her and she's extraordinary. The way she views life and how she processes things and her tenacity is, it's like palpable. I look at her and she oozes confidence. And we often have discussions, and she was raised in a home because I started entrepreneurship when she was little, because I finally realized I actually can be it all and I want to be it all. And I'm not going to sacrifice anything anymore. And if I die on the treadmill trying, I know I'm doing the right thing because this is what feels right in my soul and spirit. It's kind of answering your question of like, how do we know? Because we're depleted, we're empty, we're resentful. Our husband's going out and we resent him for going out. Well, it's not because he's going out. You resent him because you haven't gone out with your girlfriends and filled your own cup. It has nothing to do with his actions. And as a matter of fact, he should be going out with friends and doing guy things that should be applauded and celebrated. It's just that we're not doing that for ourselves. So we resent it that he is. But my daughter, it's so incredible because being raised in this home now and watching me, she feels like nothing is impossible. And she sees the bright side of things because every conversation around the dinner table, or if she heard me on a podcast or, coaching one of my clients, it was always about how to fulfill our legacy, how to overcome, how to be the best of ourselves. She didn't listen to office gossip or, the traffic, or I hate my job. That was never a discussion in our home. ever. So one of the greatest gifts in motherhood, since we were talking about that, is the evidence you get to give them just simply by doing the things. Like they feel like they can accomplish anything because you were audacious enough to follow through and to keep picking yourself back up and realizing it's always progression. It's never perfection. And it's one of the greatest gifts I think we can give our children.
I am like with you 1,000,000% on that. One of the most common questions I get on social media in my direct messages is like, how are they so confident? Like, how are your children so confident? Like, my daughter is struggling like with her confidence and how can I help her? And like, literally my answer is like, look in the mirror. Like, what are you, not what are you telling her? Not what are you saying to her? Not how good of a cheerleader are you for her?
Mm-hmm.
How are you showing her what confidence is? How are you being an example of developing trust and confidence in yourself? And if the answer is like, I'm abandoning myself for them, then no wonder they're struggling with this confidence, right? And I'm not saying that we are fully responsible for the confidence of our children because life is, not all at home with us. But I am saying that if you want to play a role in helping them develop confidence, then it starts with you, right? Like you are showing them, not telling them, because like I said, we can cheerlead all day long, but if we're not actually showing them, they won't believe us because they sense that lack in us. So the self-work is like the most beautiful work we can ever do for our children.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
It's like that new paradigm in leadership we were talking about before we hit record and like that personal responsibility. I mean, I firmly believe in this. We have thought that leadership means we have people working for us or we're leading a team of people. And although that is a form of leadership, the greatest leadership of all is how we lead ourselves through our day. 100%.
That's okay. So how did you get to this place where you were like, how am I going to lead myself? Like, what do I actually want my life or my feelings about myself or the way I show up? Like, how did you get to the place where you decided what you wanted that to be?
I was tired. I was tired of waiting. I was tired of waiting to accomplish something in order to feel a certain way. I had been creating it was a decade. I had multi-6-figure business and it was like a flat line and a great flat line to have. Multi-6 figures is a great place to be for sure. So I do not want to diminish that success or, dim it. It was wonderful, but there was more to it. There was more to me. I knew there was growth, but for some reason I was like, doing all the things, but it wasn't showing up. And I finally realized like every New Year's, I was setting the same goals. Like, this is what's going to happen. This is my 7-figure year. Like it was like Groundhog Day, the same thing over and over again. And I thought, I'm not delaying joy anymore. Like I am done because if this is it, if I never reach 7 figures, I have not enjoyed my life thus far because I'm constantly looking at this goal as though that goal is what's going to create the joy in my life. It's not. It's just going to be a bigger version, more responsibility. Other things will be required of me. So why do I keep waiting? And it was years ago. I don't know the exact year. I woke up on New Year's and I was like, no financial goals. I am going to actually set the intention this year of creating beauty with everything I do, with every bite of food that I taste, with the way I curate my spaces, with the way I get dressed, with the way I greet my husband. I'm actually going to live in luxury and it's going to have zero attachment to the number in the bank. And that was a catalyst year for me. It was world changing. And obviously, what do you think happened? What was the response? I had my first 7-figure year. And the reason I had that, I know, is because I stopped white knuckling that goal as though that was responsible for my joy and fulfillment. And I started being responsible in my days and leading my days. So I bought myself, I'm pretty known for this story. I got to start selling silk robes. I'm going to do it.
Yes.
But anyway, I decided I want to be more in my feminine because I was always in this masculine energy of do. I'm really good at that. I'm actually really like being in that energy. So there's nothing wrong with that, but I wanted to, bring more harmony. So I was like, how can I be more feminine? So I got myself a silk robe, and I thought as soon as I wake up in the morning to put that silk on my skin and feel that luxury dropped me immediately into this feminine energy. And I found myself like tiptoeing to the kitchen to get my coffee versus like the boom, boom, boom. Like my presence changed, and I started drinking coffee out of a beautiful mug that felt elevated and gorgeous, and like the coffee tasted better. And instead of just drinking the coffee and warming it up in the microwave 10 times before it was done, I sat with the coffee and I smelt it and I savored it and I gave myself a moment. And this led into the next choice and the next choice and the next choice. And my days just were memorable and beautiful. And it was no longer about what's happening tomorrow. And instead, like, here's a day. What are we going to do? How can I create it to be so gorgeous and breathtaking? And that was to me the spark of personal leadership.
Literally the most beautiful thing, because I call that like romanticizing your life, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, how can we romanticize our life, and why is it important? And it is because we go from a place of like this hustle to this place of noticing. And how often are we noticing? Like we see a lot of things, but we don't notice hardly anything, right? Mm-hmm. And so you walking us through your day, and kind of like, it's so funny because I do so many of those things that you speak of, and I just love it so much because it really truly makes a difference, because the way we feel is what we're actually chasing. Right? We are chasing feelings when we're setting goals, when we're trying these new things, when we're doing all these things, we're actually chasing a feeling, but the feeling doesn't come until we decide to notice the feeling. And so, but then when the feeling comes, then we attract more of it, right? We create more of it, which is exactly what you just explained. So now for listeners, it's like, how can you romanticize your life? Mm-hmm. Some simple things. You talked about your coffee cup, your coffee mug, right? You talked about, instead of rushing from one thing to the next, you're like sitting and savoring and noticing. It's like, I actually recently decided I didn't want to pay $65 to get my nails done and also go sit in an appointment for a while. And so now I've been like painting my own nails and doing like, because I had all the gel polish and everything. And so I was like, I actually want to make this feel good. Like I'm taking care of myself. I don't want this to be a to-do list. I just want this to like feel good. Like I can do it in my robe. I can do it at midnight. I can do it on a Sunday. I can do it whenever I want. Like what a gift, and just like or I could say, oh, my nails look horrible. They're growing out. I got to hurry and fit this in, and I got to get this. But I've been consciously going like, I'm going to like take care of my hands, and I'm going to paint my nails, and I'm going to enjoy it, and it's going to feel comfortable. And like that mind switch is exactly what we're talking about.
100%.
Romanticizing our lives, and how cool for the people that we're surrounded by to experience that romance, right? Because they're going to feel differently and respond differently. And it's going to be like, just like this energetic lift for everyone.
Ooh, I like that energetic lift. That's a good one. Yeah. And you stop looking for other people to give you the feeling like my spouse is not paying enough attention to me, or my spouse isn't romanticizing me. I started sending myself flowers every week. And bless him, because he can't beat these flowers. I buy like the most beautiful flowers because they're the ones I would choose.
Yes.
And I write myself a love letter. And every week they show up on my front porch. And you might be saying to yourself, well, I can't afford that. Yes, you can. Yes, you can. And maybe it's not once a week. Maybe it's once a month right now. Maybe it is.
Maybe you buy the $5 flowers at the grocery store, the ones that speak to you the most. And maybe it's baby's breath that day, and it's so inexpensive, but you did it for yourself, and you can make it feel beautiful.
Yes. And why are we waiting for things? This is such an important subject, because you brought it up, and we're having this dialogue of even confidence. Like people wait to feel confident before they action that business they want to start or go to that next level. It's like, well, when I feel ready, you're never going to feel ready first. Mm-mm. That is, if people say to me, what's your secret to success? How did you grow multi-7-figure businesses, mama 4, and you're doing all these things? Like, what is it? I never waited to be ready first. I did. And then the feeling of confidence, the feeling of readiness, the feeling of conviction followed. It's the side effect to action. And so romanticizing ourselves in our day is so important, because we stop looking outside of ourselves and we take the personal responsibility. And the other thing is we start being more accountable to other things, like building the business, like finding the partner of your dreams, like starting a family, like having the optimal health that you've always wanted to have. I mean, we really start to build trust with ourselves, and it's almost like this healthy addiction, because we know what the result feels like. We know if I do these things, I can count on myself, and I know how it feels on the other side, even if it's crunchy and like there's like this friction right now and wonder and worry and fear. We know and we can trust, because we've done it so often, that on the other side of this comes beautiful fulfillment.
I also love too that as you make those choices to buy yourself the flowers or take care of yourself, what you're actually saying is like, I am worthy of this. I am worth this. And I know that. And once you know that for yourself, it's like, you don't have to wait for other people. You don't have to worry if people are questioning you, like who you are or what value you have or what you deserve or don't deserve, right? Like that leaves as soon as you know and believe it internally for yourself. And that is by nurturing and loving and supporting and trusting yourself, that you get to that point. So, I mean, that's beautiful. Wow.
Yeah, that's it. Like you just summarized that perfectly. And we now you either do differently or you don't, but that's a choice. And so we can't sit in martyrism or victimhood, because you're choosing, now that you've just received this knowledge from the both of us, you're making a conscientious decision to stay put. And so please do not use that as an excuse or poor me or why not, because you chose that. Now you know and can see something different. So you can make a different choice effective immediately, not Monday, not starting the first of the next month.
Yeah.
You now know, hey, you know what? I can go get myself some flowers, and I'll buy them for myself, rather than waiting for my husband to read my mind and know that this is something I desire. It's so important. And this conversation is so healthy for us to be having. I really appreciate it.
No, I do too. And I just like want to bring to the attention too, that there's this quote that talks about how like most humans would rather they would rather be in misery and know what it feels like than being willing to change something that might feel like uncomfortable. Like they don't like it, right? They're miserable in certainty rather than like the other side of finding joy in other places. And so if that is you, if you're sitting there and you're like, I'm miserable, or I'm like lacking this thing that's speaking to me or pulling on my heart, or like I'm wishing for, I'm avoiding it, but it's because I already know what my life looks like. I already know how I feel. I already know, like no one can reject me more when I'm already here. No one, I can't be ashamed or afraid if I just sit right here. And I just want to challenge you all listening on that. I want to challenge you that like, if you are miserable, but it is certain, that is not worth stepping out into something new to find fulfillment, to find this joy and this love, this confidence that is truly waiting inside of every single one of us, right? You might have tapped into it here and there. You might be a little familiar with it. But really it's something that you can have and encompass and use every single day if you'll just make decisions differently to embrace it. And to love it, right?
It's top shelf right there.
Yeah.
Top shelf.
Yes. Oh my gosh. This is actually so good. And I think this is so important. And I do think that some people listening might be like, this is I don't want to do this, but that means that it's like really calling to you, right? It's like those things we want to close our eyes to, because we're safe in victimhood, but also the most freeing thing in the world is when you realize that you are accountable, because then now you have options, right? And we think that when we're a victim, we think they took away all my options. The only person who can take away your options is you, right?
It's true. And you may have someone in your life that doesn't support. Like, I think this is maybe a nice branch for us to take, because I also kind of pick up like, okay, I get what you're saying, the both of you. I desire this, but my partner's really comfortable with me sitting on the couch every night and watching Netflix and looking after the children. And even when I approach a subject like starting a business or, changing a career or reinventing myself in some way, shape, or form, I'm met with resistance from this person who likes me just the way I am. And this can feel debilitating and paralyzing because so many women are afraid that if they actually own what's on their heart and spirit and go after it, that somehow they're going to be dishonoring their marriage or partnership or causing conflict in the home. And I think this is a really important subject because I lived that life with my first husband. He was really against me becoming all that I could be. And I have to take responsibility in part of playing part of that out, because one of the things I've learned through that, and I'm not saying that your marriage won't work out. As a matter of fact, I hope your marriage does. I am so for marriages. For me, the responsibility was I never really shared the why behind this. So a lot of times with women, we get really fired up about an idea. We get really passionate. I love that about us. But that passion isn't always met because it's they're like, where is this coming from? And how they process that oftentimes is, I am not providing enough, or I'm not fulfilling enough in the relationship. She's seeking something because maybe our marriage isn't as connected as I thought it was. They make it very much about them as a provider. And I think it's really important that you share the why behind the reason or the feeling that you're having. Like, I want to do this because I've always wondered, like I started a magazine last year. I went to school to start a magazine. This was my dream. I never did it. I got married too young and had babies young, and my whole world flipped upside down, and it just felt like it wasn't the right time. Last year, I thought, no, I'm not letting another year in my life go by without trying this and seeing what I could create. But I told my husband at the time, and I told my audience, I'm doing this for me, for my own fulfillment, because this has always been on my heart for years. I knew I wanted to do this, and I'm not sure where it's going to go. I'm not even sure if it's going to work out, but it's something I have to attempt to know that I at least tried something. And I was, of course, met with some resistance, but mostly like awe, like, oh, I get it. Yeah. And even if you're met with resistance after that, they still don't get it. You can respect, but you don't have to accept. And what I mean by that is you can respect that maybe the person, maybe it's not your spouse, maybe it's a parent or a best friend or somebody you're working with. You can respect their opinion, their insights, their thoughts, but you don't have to accept their thoughts and opinions as your own. You are your own individual. You were born worthy. You were born with infinite potential. And so it is your responsibility to see that through and be gentle and compassionate as people start to understand and navigate what you're trying to explain, because likely you've been processing this in your mind for a long time.
Yes.
Before you shared it, right? We got to let them catch up. We got to let them start to see the vision that we've casted for ourselves. So remembering that you don't have to cower down or submit to anybody else's idea of what you should be doing if this really feels like a calling for you.
Yeah, I love that so much. And I often teach that principle of you're at level 9 here, and you're expecting them to hear and jump to level 9 with you. But really remember how you felt at level 1. You were probably just as afraid as they are, right? So it's giving them the grace and the patience and the understanding. You can come from that place of I get this feels scary for you because I was there and now I'm here. So I'm going to give you the time. But in the meantime, I'm going to keep moving, right?
Right. Yeah. And going through a divorce, especially with the business that I had, had a lot of eyeballs on me, and it was such a tender time, but I had such a huge lesson through that because we had been processing our relationship and where it was going and navigating that for years before we came to that decision together.
Yeah.
So that was not a quick decision. That was a very long decision and very amicable. And we were good. This was a good decision for us. And when we started sharing, I was flabbergasted by people's reception of it. It was, how dare we not let them know? Or it was all of a sudden all about managing their feelings and their emotions around this. It was really wow. I was shook. But that was such great evidence for me of exactly what we're teaching. Yes. They weren't part of this. They just, when I announced, they were they had to catch up. They had to, process in their own way. And I didn't need to do that alongside of them. That's their responsibility, but I could hold space for that at the same time of holding space for myself.
That's so good. And it also gives people permission that when those responses come, that they don't, not only can we be gentle with them, but also like with ourselves, like they like understanding that it's not like you're doing anything wrong. It's not that it's not a problem. It's just that simply you're on different levels of understanding, and that's okay.
Yeah, it is.
There are like so many beautiful takeaways in this conversation. And like, I know we could talk for 10 more hours about so many different things, but I honestly think that we have touched the points that people need to hear and that they can take and kind of really digest and do some own self-reflection, because it is in these things that we are able to grow into this beautiful human that is like in you and always in you and waiting to kind of blossom and become. And so I just like love everything that you shared so much. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
So to wrap up this conversation, a phrase that's really important to me is fire in her heart, peace in her soul. And it is this idea that, we should always be having something that is lighting us on fire, that we are excited about, that we are passionate for, but also that we're not like burning down our lives at the expense of, that we are also being aware of this peace that we are protecting, that is important, that's a priority, and that we can dance with both of those things at the same time. And so just the awareness and making sure that we are dancing with both. So the first question is, what is something that is currently lighting your heart on fire?
I would say currently what's lighting me on fire is the playfulness and the joy that I'm taking within my life and business, that, it's not structured. It doesn't need to fit into a box, and it doesn't even need to make sense. And starting the magazine last year was really such a gorgeous experience of fulfilling for me, but also the way it was received was incredible. And people said, this isn't going to make sense. Why would you be doing a magazine? You're so successful at these things. That's just going to be a distraction. But I knew, and I did it. And, acting on those tugs and those nudges are often the very fuel that will light your fire. And, not dim it with the water of, I shouldn't, I can't, it doesn't make sense. Instead of like, what if it's radical? What if it's audacious? What if it makes no sense at all, but you discover something by attempting and putting yourself out there and taking some risk? I think there's something really beautiful about that.
That's so cool. I'm obsessed with that. And I can't wait to check out your magazine. What's it called?
It's called Becoming Iconic. It's
Becoming Iconic. There you go. See, it's the same thing. Awesome. And what is something that you do to protect the peace of your soul?
So when I feel agitated or anxious or unsettled, which happens, I mean, you're a mama for, like, we're running businesses. I'm not going to ever say to somebody, I've got this all figured out, because I definitely don't. And if I do, I'm going to be more nervous about that than anything else. One of the questions, this is like a secret sauce tool for people that I ask myself, is when I feel disrupted in any way, shape, or form, I will say to myself, what do you desire right now? What do you desire? And I love the word desire because it provokes more than just like, what do you need? I don't want to be in need. I want to be in desire. And sometimes it'll be like, I desire just to get outside and like breathe some fresh air. Okay, I do that. Next, what do you desire right now? I desire a cup of tea. Okay, I go make myself a cup of tea. It's coaching ourselves through these moments. Yeah. We're really good at helping others, but that peacefulness comes from being able to give that to ourselves. And so the question of what do you desire right now when you feel disrupted can be the most beautiful anchor back into peacefulness and joy and love. Because often what we're feeling, that disruption, isn't truth anyway. So it is just that guide and that question to lead you to more rest and authenticity. I know it's an overused word these days, but it doesn't take away from the importance of it.
Right. And honestly, even just taking the words from what do you need to what do you desire, that is another form of romance, right? You turn it into this like soft and beautiful thing when it, instead of it feeling like this rigid, uncomfortableness. And so you are the queen of romance today in my eyes. And I love it. I think it's so important. I think it is such a valuable thing that literally every single one of us can do right now in this moment. It is the smell, the touch, the sight, the taste, all the things, paying attention to your senses and noticing and loving and like making it mean something. So gosh, thank you so much for being here, for sharing. Like, I have loved this conversation.
Me as well. Thank you so much.
We will link all of her information in the show notes. And thank you so much.